Hello. I've just read an article in my daily paper entitled "A Dirt Poor World." It's an article by Dr. Malcolm Smith, and it offers down-to-earth advice about how farming could be more wildlife friendly. Well, we're not farmers, we're gardeners. But we can still be wildlife friendly, just on a smaller scale. You might not give much thought to soil, but it is vital for our farming and our food. And things can go wrong and do go wrong. But we need to do something to protect the ground beneath our feet. So says Dr. Malcolm Smith, a former chief scientist at the Countryside Council of Wales and author of the book Ploughing a New Furrow. Okay, I'm going to try and put some text up on the screen now. I'm not too sure how well this will, how well I can do this, and it may be a little illegible depending on your eyesight, depending on how well I manage to get it onto this video. But what I'll do is, I'll read it out. Okay, so you might be able to read it yourself. You may need your glasses. If you can't read it, you can listen to me read it out. There are a number of paragraphs in the article, but there are only a couple, I think, that apply to gardeners. And that's because we are small scale and we don't suffer some of the extremes that farmers do in the wide open spaces. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So you may want to reach for your glasses now, but failing that, I will read out these two paragraphs, and then we'll take it from there. Organic matter is the lifeblood of healthy soil, but a government survey this year found that just a third of farmers keep track of it. Organic matter gets into the soil through the decomposition of plants on the soil surface, the stems and leaves, after crops have been harvested, from living and dead soil organisms, or by adding compost or manure. As it decomposes into humus, nutrients are released back into the soil and become available for future crops. Organic matter helps soil hold water, aids in reducing soil compaction and improves soil structure. Britain's garden allotments are significantly healthier than intensively farmed soils. Allotment soil has a third more organic matter, according to one study. 3/4 of allotment holders add manure to their soil. 95% add composted garden waste, and many add organic-based commercial composts. But many non-organic farmers don't add enough. Intensive crop-growing farmlands need frequent applications of manure and compost because continuous harvesting crops deplete soil humus. With an army of soil-loving rotters, fungi, bacteria, worms, mites and more, plant material would never decompose to produce humus, the dark nutrient-rich part of soil. These little rotters are the original recyclers, and we destroy them at our peril. Dr. Maria Saifawi of Thessalonica University has found that intensive farming reduces the volume by as much as 50%. Earthworms, mites and springtails in particular have declined. These losses make agricultural land less healthy and more vulnerable to pests and diseases, says Dr. Surya Foyley. That's something that the farming industry needs to take heed of. It might eventually threaten the functioning of farmlands. The solution: add far more organic matter to help the rotters thrive. Okay, that's what the academics say. But what are we doing here at Homegrown Veg? We're not that academic, but we know how to grow stuff, and we know that all of this makes common sense. We're not farmers, we're gardeners. We're small scale. You might be growing in your backyard, you might be growing in pots, you might be growing in buckets. If you're growing down the allotment, you get a big thumbs up from this report, a big thumbs up. If you've got a big backyard and you've got a compost pile and you're using that compost in your yard, then yeah, you get a big thumbs up. But what if you've got a small backyard, a small garden, a patio? You're growing in pots, you're growing in bags, you're growing in buckets. How are you going to achieve this? Well, we achieve it here at Homegrown Veg, year on year. We've been using the same soil now for a number of years. And the way we're able to do that is because we manage our soil. We look after our soil. And at the end of each growing season, we replenish that soil. We hand it over to the elements. We hand it over to the rotters, as this report describes them. You and I might know them as bugs or creepy crawlies, but we turn it over to them. And depending on the growing cycle that you follow, there will be a time in the year when that soil is available to be made better. There is nothing growing in it. You're waiting for the following growing season. So that's the opportunity to make that soil better for the next growing season. Now here in the UK, we're heading towards the middle of summer. Most vegetables have been planted in spring. They've grown through spring, they're growing into summer. We're actually harvesting vegetables now, in particular early potatoes, but other vegetables as well. And so some of this soil, if we don't recycle it on a quick turnaround and grow something else in that soil, it's not going to grow anything till next year. So we have an opportunity to do something with it, to make it better for the following growing season. Okay, that's enough of the indoor stuff. Let's go outdoors. I'll show you what we do at Homegrown Veg. There's no reason why you can't do this. You can do this. It just takes a bit of planning, a bit of forethought and a little bit of work. And you'll know during the colder months, when things just won't grow, that your soil is getting better and better and better. Come on then, let's go outdoors. Let's see how we do it here at Homegrown Veg. These are some spring onions growing in this bucket. We just take these as we need them. But as soon as this bucket's empty, we will be recycling that soil. This bucket's got a potato growing in it. It's already flowering, so we're not too far away from being able to take these potatoes from this bucket. And when we do, this soil will be ready for recycling. These are some carrots growing in this bucket. I haven't actually taken any carrots yet this year, but I will be doing shortly, and this looks as though it could be the first bucket of carrots we take. If I open them up a bit, I'm not too sure if you can see those carrots. They look fairly sizable at the top, but that doesn't say they've got any length about them. but we'll find that out when we harvest this bucket of carrots. And when we do, we'll be retaining that soil and we will be recycling that soil. These are some leeks, 4 leeks growing in this pot. This pot of soil has already delivered early potatoes this year, and just 6 or 7 weeks ago I potted these leeks up, and at the back end of autumn this year we'll probably harvest these leeks, and then this soil will be ready to recycle. This is some curly kale. We've just been taking this as we need it. 2 or 3 pots like this. We've got some dogs staying with us in a week or two's time, and I know they'll take this curly kale if they get the chance. So this might be the last time you'll see it, or it might be that I'll have to eat it before we get the dogs to stay with us. But this curly kale is growing in this pot of soil, and when this curly kale's finished, that pot of soil will be ready to recycle. This bucket contains soil that has grown potatoes. It's getting too late in the year now to plant anything that we would be able to harvest this year, because as we move through the summer into autumn we lose the light, and then in the winter it gets too cold, and we just haven't a big enough window of opportunity to grow anything now. So this soil is going to grow nothing till next year. Well, we can't just leave it sitting like this, can we? If you've harvested your early potatoes, or any vegetable for that matter, make sure you put the soil back in the bucket or back in the pot, and do what I'm going to suggest later on in this video. Okay, we'll turn this out. And as you can see, that root ball has already been broken up. It didn't take any breaking up because this soil's been, because the potato that was taken out of this pot was probably taken out a week or 2 ago, and I've broken this soil up. But that soil is going to be recycled. Okay, last one you'll be pleased to know. This pot of soil grew 4 dwarf beans. The less said about that the better. It was a bit of a disaster this year for beans. I think it may be the prolonged hot, sunny, dry weather we've been having. I haven't actually been able to get on top of the watering of these pots in terms of keeping them well hydrated. I've either had them too wet, too dry. But anyway, we're not going to talk about these beans, but what we are going to do, we're going to turn this pot out. Okay. Now then, you see all these roots? All these roots are going to break down. And this soil is going to be recycled with those roots in it breaking down. Great food for worms. Okay. Now then, I don't know if you know this, but beans and peas, all the legumes, are nitrogen fixers. They fix nitrogen to the roots. Now, I'm not too sure if you can see this, and this soil ball might collapse when I lift it up, but that looks like nitrogen nodules to me. Can you see them on there? I don't know if you can. Those small white nodules, I believe, I'm not 100% certain, those are nitrogen nodules. So already we've got some nitrogen in this mix, and we're going to retain that for next year. Okay, and we'll break this up, and this will go back in the pot. We'll get rid of that one stone. This will go back in the pot, and it'll be recycled next year. How good's that? How good is that? Now then, this is what we're going to do. We're going to let the summer months get behind us, okay? And each time we empty a pot or bucket, we'll put the contents back in it, we'll put the soil back in it, we'll harvest it, we'll take the vegetables, but we'll put the soil back in. It's got to go somewhere, and that's as tidy as anywhere, okay? And we're going to stack those buckets. We're going to wait till the autumn of the year, and then we're going to collect autumn leaves. Also in autumn, we're going to collect seaweed. Now you might not be able to collect seaweed, but it doesn't matter. Leaves and grass cuttings, that's a good base, and there's probably other things you can add. We're talking chop and drop. My preferred chop and drop are leaves, which I can collect, seaweed, which I can collect, and grass cuttings, which I can collect. That's my preferred mix for chop and drop, but you can mix anything. Okay, and the reason we do it in the autumn, well, it's fall, isn't it? That's when the leaves fall, that's when they're available, so that's when we would collect them. And we collect seaweed then because we're in the cooler months and there are no flies in it. If you collect seaweed during the summer months, you'll find it's full of flies, and if you take it home in your car, in the boot, or if you're in the States, in the trunk, by the time you get home, your car will be full of flies. So do not collect seaweed in summer months when it's too hot. Collect it when it starts to get cold, when the flies have disappeared, when they've buzzed off, so to speak. Get it home. Don't worry about salt, just lay it out. Let the rain take the strain. If there's any salt in there, the rain will wash it off. It's only residual anyway. And then you're going to chop it all up, mix it, chop it all up, and we're going to do a chop and drop on top of our buckets. Now then, if you're not growing in buckets, if you're growing in raised beds, same thing. Nothing in the bed, cover it with chop and drop. The chop and drop is going to stay on the bed or on top of the buckets through autumn and through winter and into spring. And the bugs, the creepy crawlies, the worms, any of the microorganisms, anything in that soil will love you for what you've just done. You've just fed them through autumn and winter. They will take it down into the soil, they will make your soil better. And the rain, and the wind, and the frost, and the snow, that will also help to push it in. Don't cover the buckets up, just stand them out. Let the elements at the soil. Let everything that lives in the soil live in the soil and benefit from a chop and drop covering. Now when I finish this video, and it's probably been a fairly lengthy one, you'll be glad to hear me say this is Homegrown Veg signing out. But when I do that, I'm going to attach a card that if you click on that end screen card, it'll take you to a video that shows you about how I winter compost. Now you can do this. I know you're not a farmer, you're a gardener. You may not have a lot of room. If you're down the allotment, you probably don't want to do this because you've lots of room. But if you're gardening at home, then this is something you might want to do. So I would ask you to maybe to watch that video as well and then decide, yeah, I don't want to do it, or you don't want to do it. Okay, so this is Homegrown Veg signing out.